In this video, we're going to talk about how to register an application with the Microsoft Identity Platform and use the resulting client ID, tenant ID, and client secret to generate the needed token. This is required in order to use the COZYROC Microsoft Graph REST connection for accessing SharePoint Online. The REST connection comes in a package of tasks and components called SSIS Plus that complements the standard SSIS. The first thing we'll do is look at the Microsoft Graph Connection documentation on the COZYROC website. And I'll go to the Quick Start. And I've already opened up the instructions to establish a connection. And we'll scroll on down a little bit. And here you can see for client IDs, client secret, and tenant, you must register your own application to obtain these values. And then another note is here about using a URI for redirecting. And this is the URI that we need to use. So now I'll click on this link to bring us to the Microsoft documentation for registering an application. So this is where you can read more about registering an application. Now I'll go over to the tab where I'm already logged in to the Azure portal. Of course, you'll log into your own account or your company's account. And when you first log in, you'll come to this home page and we'll click on View under Manage Azure Active Directory. Here you can see we're logged into the COZYROC LLC account. And we'll go down to App Registrations here on the left side. I click on that. And there you can see an app that I registered in the past. And so now I'm going to click on New Registration. And I'll give it a name. I'll call it COZYROC Demo 1. And then here are the supported account types. We have to choose who can use this application or access this API. I'm going to leave it set to the first choice, accounts in this organizational directory only. And it's for single tenant. And here's where I need the redirect URI. So I'm going to go back to the COZYROC documentation again. And I'll select that URI and copy it this time. First, I'm going to choose web. And then I'll paste in the URI here. And then I click on register. There you can see we already have a couple of the values that we'll need when we generate our new token for the Microsoft Graph connection. So I'm going to copy the application ID, also known as the client. Stay tuned to see how to generate the token from the REST Connection Manager.
If you are integrating applications with SQL Server, you know it can be quite a hassle. With the COZYROC SSIS Plus REST framework, you can easily connect any web service. Create XML-defined configuration file. Process complex services with an embedded JavaScript engine. For additional power, you can use any .NET class in your code. All data is protected using the standard SSIS framework. Check the growing list of ready-to-use REST configurations. Start using the COZYROC SSIS Plus suite now. It's free for download and development in Visual Studio.
Now I'll go to Visual Studio and I'll start setting up a REST Connection Manager here. So I right mouse click and then select New Connection. I'll scroll down and find the REST Connection Manager. Select that. Now I need to look for the configuration for Microsoft Graph and select that. And I'm going to leave the authentication method set to OAuth and the token storage set to file. And now for token file, I'll click on New. And I'm using Chromium. And for client ID, that's what I just copied from registering our application. So I paste that in there. Now I'll go back over to where I registered the application and I need to get a client secret, so this is another step. I need to actually generate a new client secret. And I'm going to give it a name. I'll call it Diane's Secret. And for the expiration, I'm just going to leave it set to the default for 180 days or 6 months. And now I click on Add. And it's very important that you copy the value, because what we need is the value and not the secret ID. So I copied that, and I'm going to save that in a Notepad document, because you'll never be able to see it again from the Azure portal. And something else I want to let you know is you can only generate 2 client secrets under a registered application. So if you needed to generate one because you forgot to save one you already generated, you'd have to delete one of the other ones to do that. So I'll paste it in here now in the client secret location. And now I need to go back to the Azure portal and get my tenant. So I'll go back to the overview and find the tenant, which is also known as the directory ID. And I'll copy that and go back to Visual Studio and paste it in here where it says common. And now I need to go back to the COZYROC documentation to get the scope that I should use. And here it says for the file transfer task with SharePoint, and it tells me what to use for the scope. That's what this package is set up to do. So I'll copy that and go back to Visual Studio and paste it after what was already there. I want to leave that there. And then for the prompt, you can leave it set to consent, or you can go look at the Microsoft documentation to see what other choices you have. And our documentation does tell you where to go to read up more on that. Now I click on Next, and I'll sign in using my credentials. And then I click on Next and enter my password. I click on Sign In, and I'm going to accept these permissions that it's requesting. And it has generated my token. Now I just need to save the token file someplace where I can get to it again if I want to use it in another package. So I'll give it a different name from any files I've created in the past. And then I need to give it a password to encrypt it. I click on OK. There's one more thing we need to do to get our connection manager to work, and that's make sure the permissions are set correctly. So I'm back at the Microsoft documentation, and I'm going to click here to open the Microsoft Entra Admin Center and open that in a new tab. And so I refer to this also as the Azure portal. And I'm going to choose my account to log in. And it looks different from earlier in the video. I'm going to click here, go to Microsoft Entra ID. And here you can see, again, I'm logged into the COZYROC LLC account. And I'm going to go over to Applications here on the left. And then I'll select App Registrations. And it shows both of the applications I have set up. And I'll select the one that I registered earlier in this video. And this looks a little bit different too. Now I'll select API permissions. And then I'll click on Microsoft Graph. And this is where I can enable permissions for the API. And I'm going to do it for the offline access as well as the profile. And then I click on Update Permissions. And now I will go over to Visual Studio. And this is our connection manager that we were working on. And now if I click on Test Connection, the test connection succeeded. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to follow us on social media, here's how you can do that.